So, as you know, last winter, January 1st, we got a new district attorney for that Osage County and a few other counties. And his name is Mike Fisher.
We're still in Pawhuska.
Yes,
still in Pawhuska.
because he wasn't on the job as DA for 10 days. And all of a sudden, he gets the 3 a.m. graveyard crew of the Pawhuska Police Department got the biggest marijuana bust in Oklahoma history, don't you know? If you don't believe it, just ask them. They'll tell you. It was because it was a truckload of industrial hemp from Kentucky, which grows some of the best medicinal quality industrial hemp. They've been doing this for years, since 2014, when the USDA authorized industrial hemp. Because remember, even though hemp was still part of that Schedule 1 banned drug, the federal government did not differentiate industrial hemp from real powerful marijuana.
Right.
Okay, so but that all changed, and then part 2 of that change came December 20th, when the federal government passed the Ag Bill that not only allowed states to have these programs, but now the interstate commerce of industrial hemp is became statutory.
Right.
Okay. And nonetheless, Mike Fisher, the DA up there, said, you know what? My tests, even though they're preliminary tests, says that it exceeded the 0.3% THC. That's the bad boy juice inside of marijuana that makes you funky, okay? They decided that if it doesn't stay within that 0.3, it changes from industrial hemp to the bad boy marijuana, okay?
Because now...
Yeah. And now, if you talk to Leader Eccles of the Oklahoma House, who wrote the bill to authorize the Oklahoma Industrial Hemp Program, he calls it non-compliant hemp. As long as it's beneath 1%, it could be triple what's allowed and still just considered non-compliant. Nobody goes to jail over it. You just have to discard it.
I call it patriotic hemp.
Yes, and there's more to that to come, let me tell you. So anyway, what the federal government weighed in through the USDA's general counsel. And they said, look, this is interstate commerce, and it's governed by the U.S. Constitution. We forgot to put the bell out here.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. U.S.
Hey, you brought it up before I did.
That's right. That's right. Those of you betting over and under, I just screwed you over. We used to bet, how long can we go into the show before David mentions something's unconstitutional? So anyway, let's get back to this. So the Constitution does say that the federal government has power to regulate interstate commerce.
Right.
That's
and this truck's just going through Pawhuska.
Right.
Okay.
And just going through Oklahoma, because it comes.
Yeah,
it's coming
from Tennessee to Colorado.
Kentucky.
Or Kentucky to Colorado.
And so, and they chose Oklahoma because they thought that the cops in Oklahoma would not be such Neanderthals about it. And they said, do not go through Kansas. At least people in Kentucky think we're more intelligent than Kansas, okay? So they must have been wrong. They were not considering Pawhuska nor Mike Fisher, the DA.
This is probably the first time the cops in Pawhuska have been mean to a hemp truck. And so...
So anyway, these 4 guys sat in jail like a month.
Yeah.
Now, they finally decided to let 2 of them go, but they turned them state's evidence. And the other 2 guys who were just running the security vehicle behind it, those 2 guys are facing life in prison right now, and he's going to throw the book at them for having, full-blown biggest marijuana bust in Oklahoma history. And so the federal government just gave the red light to Pawhuska and said, no state between the shipping state and the receiving state can interfere with that.
And this is good news.
Right, because they said if Kentucky certifies it as part of the USDA program, now all states have to honor it as federally protected commerce. And they said, until it gets up to Colorado. Once it's in Colorado, then that state does have power to control what's in their state. But the states in between have to honor the transport.
That makes sense. I got a question now. When they grow the original industrial hemp, during the growing processes, have to be registered or licensed, as unconstitutional as it might be. Is there some sort of does it have to be all like, look, we're growing this, but it's all industrial, right?
Well, if you want the feds' blessing, then it has to be through a federal Department of Agriculture program.
You have to gain the blessing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And you have to basically gain the blessing of whatever sovereign, whatever government you are going to be dealing with.
Now this General Counsel for USDA says it's only protected if it's part of the program that we authorize. Because, omnipotence is a godly virtue. So anyway, what they ended up saying, though, is since this was part of a federal program in Kentucky, therefore the feds are going to protect it. What they're saying is that Colorado, and especially that medicinal processing plant up in Colorado, has a green light to sue the state of Oklahoma because the district attorney, Mike Fisher, is a state agent of our government.
Which he is.
And then the city of Pawhuska, because they are the arresting officers. They are also prohibiting it. And then they go further in this opinion of the General Counsel, USDA, says, and there is a ban on any federal funds being used to prohibit this shipment. That means if the police department in the city of Pawhuska gets any federal funds at all, they are at risk and may have to repay what they've got from the federal government for police work because they used it to violate the Constitution.
Okay, which is kind of almost the question. Because
Well, they didn't use it to violate the Constitution. They used it to violate the USDA program and the protections of
but
that
interstate commerce though is a constitutional stipulation.
Right, but that gets into a whole thing. They want to make it constitutional, but in reality, they're protecting their own programs, protecting their own licensure schemes, their own bailiwick.
So it seems like the feds came down on the side that we like this time, but is that an overreach of federal?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, that they happen to come down on the right side this time is pure accident.
Yes.
It's accident of the fact that Pawhuska ended up interfering with federal trafficking, as it were.
Yeah.
Okay, because basically it is an illegal act to transact business and to transport the products of that transaction if some government says it is.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, first of all,
and that's what you have with hemp and marijuana and things like that.
Yeah.
All business, without exception, as long as it is legitimate, not dealing in stolen goods or anything like that, is legitimate and is to be protected by the feds and the locals.
Yeah, listen, the Interstate Commerce Clause was most well-known bastardization happened over agriculture. Back, I think it was in the time of FDR, about a man growing oats just for his consumption of his own animals on his farm, and they said, wait a minute, the USDA has control over mandates of who gets to grow how much.
Correct.
And so
the man grew 37 acres of wheat. Wheat.
Was it wheat? Okay.
It was 37 acres of wheat, and he was restricted to 19.
Okay.
And it was all to feed his own chickens.
This is the kind of story that proves them wrong when they say, oh no, these restrictions on water, they're not trying to get into your backyard pool and creek and stuff.
Right.
It's like,
and that's the important thing, and because it's not just the USDA, it's the EPA and several others, because what exists in each state is the property and domain of that state, not of the federal government. The federal government.
I thought the county owned the land.
No. Well, okay, that leads into a very good
I'm saying
conversation
from
that I've had this
from the federal government's standpoint, Okay, what's in each state is the domain of
okay.
that state.
Right.
In terms of regulatory domain, if you will.
That makes
okay.
sense from
statutory
that
domain.
angle.
Right.
Yes, federalism says that the feds have certain responsibilities and they can exercise nothing outside of those areas. And the states are sovereign in terms of dealing with the statutory issues within their states. The feds have no ability to come in and regulate anything.
Right.
Hate crimes, federal hate crimes in the states are illegal.
Yeah, so
Because the states have
a good example. Let's go back to liquor prohibition.
Okay.
How did we enact national prohibition on liquor? The only one legal way to do it was to amend our Constitution.
Correct.
Because the federal government by themselves has no authority to ban liquor.
Will ban anything that's over.
Right. And so that's an example just from within the last 100 years of how it's supposed to be.
Right.
You know, that in the interstate commerce you can speak to as a federal government to some degree, but its existence within a state is only governed by that state. Just like firearms, as long as the firearm manufacturer only sells within his state, the Fed should have no authority over manufacturing firearms.
Well, the feds have no authority over manufactured firearms, period. I mean, the Second Amendment is clear, shall not be infringed means just that.
Right.
The thing is that, again, I'll state it again, regulation is not prohibition. And whenever there is a prohibition, it is therefore a faulty regulation. And it doesn't matter whether it's federal or state. Because our rights trump those prohibitions.
This is going to come up in our libertarian discussion.
Yeah. So anyway, Pawhuska made national attention on two stories in the same week.
Clearly, Pawhuska has been the sponsor of the first half of the show. So
That's right.
thank you, Pawhuska.
Thank you, Pawhuska.
And I want to give a shout out. Tawana Bollinger is the grandma.
Nice job.
Who really did what she was supposed to do. And I tell you what, she's got a lot of detractors. You know, she may not be the social light of the town. She's plain spoken. She is who she is. She doesn't apologize for who she is. And if the way she talks, the accent she has, or whatever, you know what? That woman showed more courage than most of the bridge club downtown.
Exactly.
Well,
That's so true.
And I don't know all of the issues, and I'm not getting into Pawhuska politics. But thank you, Laura, for your.
Well, it's Tawana's her name.
Tawana, thank you, Tawana, for your patriotism and your courage for standing up, because that needs to happen, whether you prevail or not.
Right.
Your rights must be protected, and especially your rights when they are difficult and others disagree with them.
It's true. Patriotism is not kissing up to your government. More often, it's standing up against your government.
I'll tell you what, you spend 30 days in jail and you take a truckload of hemp and make it compliant.